Hello, what's up guys? This is the Backlog Brawler and today we're gonna do vampirism. So what better game is there to do vampirism than Age of Empires 2? And we're gonna create a vampire unit specifically, and we're gonna do Joan the Maid, starring Joan the Maid as our vampire. So before anything else, let's start with a preview of what we can do. So here's scenario. You're gonna get a notice that your vampire wife is out of control, and you're gonna stop her with your shiny Stakemaster 3000, and you get that as an objective. Here you go. One other thing is, do not let Helpless Town, which is another player, lose their initial town center. And basically I'm blue and Helpless Town is green, and Vampire Queen, happens to be my wife, is red. So we're gonna have to capture some key elements of what being a vampire is, given that there are so many attributes that can be attributed to a vampire, but we're gonna focus on maybe a few stuff. First of all is vampires come out at night. Vampires are very physically strong, almost impossible to kill with super speed and super attack. And vampires have minions. So here we go. Day turns to night, Vampire Queen hunts. Oh no! Help me! So, as you can see, the Vampire Queen in this scenario goes straight for the allied town center. And anybody who gets in her way gets killed. You'll see that it seems like the Vampire Queen is losing, but if you tweak the day and night cycle correctly, there we go. So since it's daytime, Vampire Queen goes back to her lair. Well, she tries to go back to her lair, but that's a gameplay element. She will be able to successfully do that. And here's one aspect where the Vampire Queen has her thralls. So yeah, kind of like that. And the key thing here is you can see the stats and the Vampire Queen. Yeah, I picked the Queen icon thingy there, and I tweaked the attack just so that it's enough to cause some chaos, enough to whittle down the just to show how powerful she is, but not really to one shot all buildings and all that stuff. So it kind of gives you, as the player, enough time to do whatever the win, whatever kind of a game you want. If you want maybe some sort of condition so that you can defeat the Vampire Queen, some sort of quest, so that's what you can do. And I've put in a little bit of fighting chance for the green player, so I've set a town center condition, which I will be explaining when I do the explaining for the triggers. So once the town center health goes down to, I think, 1,800, below 1,800, it's at least going to spawn some champions for the Helpless Town. Just to keep up the suspense that, hey, because look at that, look at the kill rate of the Vampire Queens. Like, wow, Joan the Maid. I didn't know you were this powerful. So here we go, Joan the Maid attacks the town center. Hopefully we can bring that town center down to 1,800, and there you see it's gonna spawn some champions to repulse the Vampire Queen. So yeah, it may have been better if I sent it straight there, but you can see when the Vampire Queen does do her retreat, she'll be met with the champions blocking her way. But given that she's just so powerful for that regeneration, look, she's just gonna shred through those champions. And yeah, so basically that's how the scenario goes. And you could probably interpolate that the town center will eventually fall after a certain amount of time, and so that's the scenario. But before I discuss how to actually have a win condition, an interesting win condition, let's go back to our editor. So I'm back at the editor. This is actually you or me or whoever. But now let's get to the meat of the video. And we're gonna discuss the triggers. So first we have our start trigger, which does a change view so that we can focus on the vampire queen herself and displays instructions. So pretty standard trigger. And then it doesn't really, I just put the timer to 10 so that it'll display it a bit longer. And then the objective is just to trigger displaying the objective like I showed earlier. And I made it a header so that it'll always be on this, what do you call this, upper right portion. And under the objective, because start has some stuff here. So under the objective, I've put a condition here to if you destroy this object, the vampire queen basically, you declare victory for player 1. And as with my other maps, you have to set global victory to maybe custom, but right now I'm putting it to standard. Doesn't matter because it'll trigger anyway. But be careful guys when you're doing your declare victory objectives, just to make sure that you're setting global victory to custom so that you won't accidentally win the scenario or lose the scenario by triggering the standard victory conditions. And then the lose trigger I set to if this object is destroyed, which is the town center, you add an effect, declare victory, but untick this, which means the opposite. It'll declare a loss for player 1. Okay, now to the meat of how to create your own vampire. We have a trigger here, VQ stats, and it's all basically modification of attributes. So what that does is you set source to player 2, and then for the object list, just choose Joan the Maid. And you set different attributes depending on how you want to maybe modify your vampire. So for hit points, I set it to 1000, so just do set and 1000. And then for attack, just do 40. And then here is an interesting field, armor attack type. So you need to go into the Genie editor, and then there are some fields here where you can see the attack type, the armor and attack type. So basically you have to find which kind of unit depending on the armor or attack type, it's gonna do different damage. So you may want to take a look at what's number 4 here and see for yourself which, for example, if you want maybe a vampire that does damage greater to some certain groups, so certain types of units, you can do that. And then that gives her the uber attack. And the next attribute you have to modify is movement speed, just for the super speed. I've set it to 4, and you can see how fast she moves. That is definitely not how a maiden moves. Definitely a vampire. And this is just for fun. You can do object name ID, you can change the name. So here you can put in the name, just set it there. And then for icon ID, again, you can set your custom icon, whichever you want. So I just put this as 168, which is the ID for the queen, a queen icon. So just because if you don't do that, it's gonna display Joan the Maid, which is maybe fine by you or whatever you want. And then finally, this is very important, regeneration rate. So just to make sure we don't kill the vampire, and the vampire is really all powerful and stuff, just set it to 2000. So you can technically just set a super high value for HP, or you could set a trigger that whenever vampire's HP goes below a certain amount, it'll just re-add the HP back. But I chose regeneration rate because it has this certain element of how would you call this? it gives you hope, basically, because you can see that the vampire HP is just going down, and oh, it's gonna get killed, and suddenly, you know, Green just doesn't have any troops left to further kill the vampire queen. So yeah, so I chose that. Now, with VQ stats out of the way, we do a day and night cycle, and as you can see, it's a bit of complicated trigger here. So let's tackle first the day trigger. First is you have to do a timer, so that's the condition. It's a 60-second timer I put, so you can set that to whatever value. So remember that if you set it too low, then all the vampire queen's gonna do is just go back and forth. If you set it too high, then there might be a chance that it's either scenario would be boring because you know, vampire queen's just doing nothing, or it might happen that the vampire queen gets killed too early because, you know, you've set it too long and she won't return and stuff like that. So anyway, for the effects, the first thing you have to do is to change the color mood. You change it to night. So once, well, as you can see in the previous video, I mean in the previous clip, then you'll see that the entire environment changes to night. And then we just do a display instructions effect, and we just say that the day turns to night, the vampire queen hunts, and display that for 10 seconds just for effect. And then we activate a trigger, which is night. So yes, we're going to activate this trigger, but before I go to the night trigger, let's see the other stuff here. So we're also gonna trigger another trigger from the trigger list called VQ move. So that's basically vampire queen move. And we're going to turn off day trigger and VQ return. So we'll get, you know, you maybe already have an idea what that does, but it'll get clearer as we go. So that's for the day trigger, and very important, trigger starting state should be on because it's a day-night cycle. It should be on at the very beginning of the scenario. It doesn't depend on anything else. Because this is the first, what do you call this? This is the first, this is the trigger, the initial trigger for the day-night cycle. You don't need to loop this because we're using a timer to regulate the length of the day. Oh, and I did a short description. It's daytime. You're safe for now. So just so the player knows that the vampire queen's not gonna attack anymore. So anyway, so it activates two triggers, right? Night and VQ move. So let's just go to night first. It's basically like day. It's 60 seconds timer, but again, you can choose whatever time you want. You change the color mood from night to, well, I chose autumn, but whatever looks like day for you. And then display instruction, night turns to day, village is safe. And then you activate the trigger day, which would trigger the 60-second countdown for day. And you activate VQ return, and you disable in turn the activate VQ move and the night trigger. So as you can see, the day and night is basically just displaying messages and changing the color mood, but it's also triggering the movement for Vampire Queen. So let's check out VQ move. So VQ move is basically a timed trigger, 10-second countdown. It will task the object. So go to objects here. It will task Vampire Queen here, and what it'll do is it'll do an attack move to a certain location. So this is the location. So anything that the Vampire Queen encounters is going to be treated like an attack move. So why do we have this timer? It's because, you know, if you do an attack move and green suddenly intercepts, it's going to break the attack move because the Vampire Queen already has the target, and the Vampire Queen won't try and go to the town center anymore. So every 10 seconds, we're just gonna prod her to just, hey, your objective is actually the town center. And don't waste your time with the other green guys. So that's for VQ move. For VQ return, it's more of the same thing. But this time, I set the timer to 5 because in VQ return, the effect is to task the object, which is the Vampire Queen, to go to the location. It's move, it's not attack move, it's just move here. So why not attack move? Because when this triggers, VQ return, we're expecting that it's coming from this town center, and we're expecting heavy resistance, and if you just say attack move, then it's just gonna, she's not gonna go back here, basically. She won't go back here. So we have to do a move so that she will ignore whoever she meets, and we have to do it every 5 seconds because green will probably be swarming her. And so that is the VQ move and VQ return. So if we go back to day and night, that also regulates whether VQ move or VQ return is active. Right. And so for the minions, we do a condition. If the object HP, which is the Vampire Queen, if her HP is less than or equal to 500, which is half, and we have a second condition, and if the objects in this area, which if you can see this mini map here, it's the entire map basically. So it's just saying that if there are it's quite a lot of fields to explain, but look at this: object state alive, and object list is monk. Quantity is set to 10. So what this is saying is that if there are less than 10 monks that are alive in this area, which is the entire map, that's gonna trigger the condition. So to sum it up, if her HP is less than 500 and if there are less than 10 monks, it will trigger the effect create object monks. So that's gonna be the vampire thralls, and we trigger an attack move. So since we're creating an object around here, we trigger an attack move from this area, so this area going to this location. So it's basically going to support the Vampire Queen. But if you notice, so we have trigger looping, so it will try and detect if the conditions are still there. So what does that mean? If object HP or if Vampire Queen HP goes above 500, this trigger stops. Or if the number of monks is more than 10, then this trigger stops. But if it doesn't, it's just gonna keep creating monks. So it's a single create object which will loop again and again. And trigger starting state is on because at any time that might happen, these two conditions might happen, so we want that on at the very beginning. Oh, and yeah, VQ return and VQ move, they're off because they're going to be triggered by the day and night cycle. So for reinforcements, which is, as you can see, there were some champions spawned near the town center. So the trigger for that is if the object, go to object, so you can see town center, if HP is less than or equal to 1800, and if it is kind of the same thing with the monks, if the entire map, player 3 champions, less than 20 champions alive, then it's going to do the following effects, which is to create some champions, do an attack move. So anybody in this area, which we're pretty sure there are champions there, they're going to go to this location, so we can set it to wherever location we want. But the important thing is when creating the object, you do have to either teleport to the object or do an attack move so that they'll move out of the way, so that if you have a looping trigger, they just keep creating the champions. Because if you don't move them out of the way, they'll just stand there, and even if the trigger keeps looping, it won't be creating extra champions. And we send chat that just to notify that the allied champions are there and they're here to delay their demise. And then finally, the last trigger, which I haven't shown yet. So if I bring this object, go to object. So me, if I bring me to this area here, so it could be anything actually. It could be any condition. You can build a scenario around it. And if those conditions are met, we just change the view, and it just takes a look at here, so a bit north of, or rather, whatever this is, northeast of the lair, and we just create an object. We create a ballista elephant. So why a ballista elephant? Because they have gigantic stakes. It's basically Stakemaster 3000. And just make sure the source player is you, player 1. And then we modify the attribute. So the attributes I want to modify are attack reload time. We set it to 1 so that because the ballista shoots quite slowly. I mean, they reload slowly, so we set it to 1 so that it'll be faster. And then we modify the attribute. We set attack to 100 with armor attack type 3. So again, to know what values you want to put there, you want to go to the Genie editor and check out what is available for that unit. And then you send a chat. Your Stakemaster 3000 has arrived. And you know what? Let's just copy this and maybe have a new effect. VQ stats. Remember I did object name ID change. Maybe you can do that for this one. So object attributes, object name ID, and let's just name it. I don't know if it can take that long. Quantity, I'm not sure what that is, well, what that will do, but whatever. So let's test it out. So there we go. Let's just go to the area where I can buy my Stakemaster 3000. Alright, so my ballista elephant is here. Oh, wave 1. That's kind of weird. Oh, okay, I remember what that... I think what that number means. It kind of looks up a table, but anyway, let's just look at the action here. Vampire Queen, so Stakemaster 3000 able to dispatch the Vampire Queen easily. And let's just go back to modify attribute. Where was that? Object, yeah, we have to set it to 0, I think. Else it's going to take some I think there's some mapping behind it. So if you put a quantity here for object name ID, it's gonna reference the mapping table and take that name. So that's why it was named wave 1. So let's test that out. Alright. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. I am Vlad Dracula, by the way. There we go. See, Stakemaster 3000, not wave 1, and we're out to kill Vampire Queen. And she's running. Yeah. No chance you're gonna kill that. Okay, so Again, there are lots of ways you can tweak this, but I showed again the choice attributes for having a vampire queen scenario, and up to your creativity, you can maybe do some other tweaks, like give them other attributes. You can absolutely, and this is the best one, is how do you summon the vampire slayer to you can just put a whole bunch of chaining objectives. Sky's the limit. So I hope you liked today's video, and see you on the next map editor tutorials for Age of Empires 2.